Ugh. I'm aware, sub. I was
Oh,
declining.
I've been muted this entire
You
time.
were muted this entire
Okay.
time, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go over a few groundskeeping rules before we practice raising our hands, which is, of course, everyone's favorite part. As we've already got people
I love.
requesting
There's
to
nothing to
speak.
discuss yet, people. We've not covered anything yet.
But real quick, I am going to be recording this town hall for the archives, and I guess I'll have to upload it for us later. Let me double check everything's there. I'll go over the basic stuff, and then you can teach people how to raise their hands. Does that work, Sub?
Yeah. So
Oh,
I believe raising your hand. I've never actually done it on this side. Yeah. Where's Licky? Where's Licky?
No, it's all right. Okay.
There
So
it is.
at the
Yep.
bottom of your screen, you should
At the
see
bottom of your screen, yes, there's a little button to raise your hand that looks like a hand waving.
Yeah, and if you click it, it should say raise hand. Once you've clicked the raised hand button, it will say lower hand. I'm pretty sure. And basically, if your hand is raised, it will say lower hand. If it is lowered, it will say raise hand. Some very basic stuff, but just know that once you've clicked it, it will be seen by us, and then we will basically invite you to the stage to speak. And at that moment, we'll introduce you, and then we'll allow you to speak, basically. It says request to speak and cancel request. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Couldn't remember exactly what it said, but I knew it was close. Again, we've got the rough itinerary in announcements. In that same section where Sub made that announcement on 3/16/2023, 8:33 p.m. Central Time. Where the notable changes, those are the rough itinerary of changes that we're going through. They're basically all rule changes. A lot of it is clarification on certain things. There really shouldn't be a ton of questions, but again, we will allow as much time as possible for questions. Sub is also going to be pinning the new rules page, if you can see them in their entirety by clicking on that link in the town hall content, and it's now pinned. So without further ado, I guess let's see some raised hands. Who's got their hand raised? I know someone does. Gosh, dude. Which pick your poison, Sub.
Hang tight. Sorry, somebody just put in a ticket right now. Okay.
Someone did put in a ticket. He's correct.
Jammo is first here. Go.
Then start.
Should be. Yeah, it started.
Yeah.
What's up?
Fav, shouldn't you make? Hold on, real quick.
On the rules.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean,
yes.
Shouldn't we wait for you guys to go over them before
we probably should. Do you just have preemptive questions on the rules?
Well, I mean, where's Dops? I guess there's a question.
Dops is currently in a match.
Playing a game.
Official AD2L ticketed match.
I feel like admin should be held to a higher standard. That's kind of unacceptable.
Okay.
Like if you don't have all three admins here before, town hall, I feel like you guys just kind of forfeit.
Yeah, we should probably wait 15 minutes though until that point. Maybe we can get a stand-in admin.
I'm just saying, like the clock's ticking.
We might be able to get a stand-in admin though if you'll just give us a little bit of time.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And Fab, shouldn't you make an announcement? So once you make the event, you show interest in the event, it pings you automatically. So if you weren't interested in the town hall, you did not get pinged for the town hall event that is happening.
I will.
There was an announcement made
now, regardless.
But it's okay. Fab hasn't been in the country for very long. He just got back. I say that he was actually in the country the whole time. All right, let's. I think we have one more request to speak, and I'll humor them before we officially start.
I just wanted to give a reminder to make a ticket before you put in the stand-in. That would be preferred for your stand-in for DOPS.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Just making sure that our admins understand the rules.
No, absolutely. Thank you for reminding us of the rules and proper etiquette for
No problem.
requesting
If you
a
want,
stand-in.
do you mind if I just read the rules to you, Gambit, and your other admins?
I do mind, actually. Can we not? All right. Town Hall starting now. I would be so mad at that ping, I'm gonna be honest. Listen, because we've already made the event and people are already here, we're starting the Town Hall, okay? If you weren't ready for the Town Hall event, you didn't mark your calendar, too bad, too sad. Better luck in 7 months or something. I don't know when the next one is. All right.
Yes, probably 3 months, roughly quarterly.
So, just pull up quickly. So the first change is the addition of Heroic League. Kind of the first notable change, rather. There are, of course, a couple changes that include, such as reweighting the leagues, and I'll kind of I think we can bundle that together. That's all right with you, Sub?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So basically, adding the Heroic League did a few things. One of them being it shifted the weights of all the current leagues down so that we could add room for the Heroic League that we were constantly moving towards the ascension path, I guess one could say, with Key. Was it Key?
Kiki.
Kiki's plan, basically, where we kept increasing ranks in predominantly the upper leagues. Such as Warrior Plus, but Challenger and Archon, or Challenger and Voyager did see some, I believe, average changes, like once or twice. And so now we're here. All the leagues are shifting back down. Heroics being added, so we have that 7th league. And so you may not be eligible for the league you're currently playing in or we're playing in this season because of the shift down, but you may notice that the league above it is now very close to where your average on your team may have been. So that's kind of what that caused, and I guess we can take some questions, talk about it for a little bit if we'd like, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, what do we got?
All right,
welcome.
What? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, can hear you loud and clear, Benny.
Okay, I'm in the car, so the audio just got kind of fucked. Anyway, so I don't know if this is something you guys are going to talk about right now in relation to the league adjustments, or if this is something you were going to address later. But somewhere in the rules around talking about like the badge adjustments for the different leagues and stuff, and I don't think this was in the previous iteration of the rules, but there was something to the effect of the admins are going to be allowed to adjust people's badges as they see fit. Am I correct in saying that?
So that'll be, again, let me double check. That's at the end, I believe, right?
He may be talking about the next section, or 2 sections down, player account rules. That's only in the case that we may think that somebody is like intentionally sandbagging, or in a really extreme case where we think that somebody may be not properly represented by their skill. But this is not something that is going to be implemented on any kind of a wide scale. If it happens, be very, very selective and very person by person. This is not something we're implementing with an algorithm or anything like that.
I just want, is Penix in here right now? By any chance?
I shouldn't be in the same.
If Penix wants to either type in content, roughly how many RD2L players out of how many RD2L players got rank adjusted in RD2L, It'll probably be very similar in AD2L, but I think it was literally something out of like it was like 5 out of 500 or something like that. Maybe got adjusted.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably even fewer in AD2L, honestly.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's more or less like we can now implement it. 5 out of 100 ish is what he said. Okay. So it's more or
Okay.
less it gives us kind of the ability to implement it in extreme cases, but I don't think Sub and I don't plan on going out witch hunting for every account and being like, this person needs to go up one badge because they're just a little bit better than we think they are. It's going to be used in more extreme cases.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to kind of mess up the order. I just thought this was tied in with that rule. So
It roughly is. No, Sub was right. I had the order slightly off.
all right, that's all for me.
Alrighty.
Thank you, sir. All right, we got Talus.
Hello.
Hello, Talus.
Welcome.
Hey, so I just wanted to clarify because I think that the message that you just sent out was maybe misreceived by people. When you say that you're going to very limitedly adjust people, you're not actually adjusting badges so much as selectively preventing someone from playing in a league that their badge technically should let them play in. And that's all you're doing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean-
I think it could vary case to case.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the scenario, right? Because like we'll just use Hexys as an example, right? Like let's say Hexy's Archon 4. Everyone loves talking about Hexy, except for people that are talking about Hexy. Like let's say he's Archon 4, he wants to play in Voyager. Well, we're just gonna say even though you're eligible, you can't play. Let's say because now Challenger's like an Archon 5 capped league. Or average league, sorry, not capped. Let's just say like relatively speaking, he's like Legend 2, but like, he's been ancient forever. We could say something similar, and I don't think we would do this in this specific case, but like we could say, hey, you could play, but you have to be the max badge. Even though you're kind of fluctuating now, we know you're going to be at like probably at least near Legend 3 or higher. And like I think there still could be some, again, fringe cases where that may happen, but for the most part, it's likely just to be, no, you can't play in this league.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so technically that could happen. It's just not
It could.
likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
And we got Stanny.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yeah.
Stanny.
Awesome. Hello. So I had a question around the Heroic League, actually. So I guess maybe it's a loaded question, maybe kind of have a lot of thoughts on it, but it seems more so that, in my opinion, the Heroic League is kind of like we're obviously pushing the cap to like 7,050, and we're bringing back one guy, Herbie, which is awesome. Love playing with that guy. See him in here right now. How you doing, Herbie? So it's bringing back one player, but I feel it more so culls off the bottom of Champions League than it does, bring in more players, if that makes any sense. And I would say like Champions League right now I'm pretty sure it's the lowest played in league. I know the site shows 14 teams, right? But after doing content, I understand how many teams actually dropped out. There was actually only 11 teams at the very end for Champions League, and that's probably the lowest of any league. So I feel like if you're culling the bottom and not really adding anything in with increasing the cap, that potentially down the road, right, you could run into an issue. So I guess in the event that Heroic League has like 7 signups or something like that, is there like some idea or fallback plan for the next season, like reworking the cap?
Maybe. I will say if we have 7 teams, I mean, we will still run a league. It may not be,
Right. Yeah.
We may not run the
no, I'm not
7-week
thinking
format.
like
We may
dead.
just run round robin, 6 weeks or whatever. Call it a day. But yeah, there's adding Heroic League is going to introduce a new slew of problems that we're going to have to face, I think, just in general as a community, and figure out kind of like how exactly we can make Heroic as prominent as the other leagues, and also without like, again, stealing from, like you said, you don't really want like the bottom echelon of Champion to just be cut out, because they still might be playing, a lot of them in Heroic, because they have all those immortal friends still. But
Yeah,
it-
I mean, like that was my my main point, right? Like Hellbears is playing right
Yeah.
now,
And they have, like-
control on Hellbears is like
Yeah.
an ancient 4. So now like obviously the scenario wouldn't happen, but like let's say Herbie was taking on control, a rank 600 versus an ancient 4. Like
Right.
ideally that's not a fair matchup. So I worry that you're culling the bottom too much than you are adding value in by increasing the cap. I guess that's all I was going for. So
Sure.
fair enough. I guess we'll see how it works. All right. Thanks for the time, though.
Yep.
All right. Well, that, unless anybody else has anything specifically about Heroic League right there, we are going to move on to the next section, which is team rank eligibility, which thankfully not a whole lot changed here. We changed the verbiage slightly just to clarify. A lot of the rules changes, if any of you have gone over them, were very minor, and they were more aimed at clarifying things that were done differently than the rules were written, if that makes sense. A lot of things had been in place for a long time and maybe weren't enforced the exact way that they were written, just due to changes over time in the league. So with team rank eligibility, there have been a lot of edge cases with teams ranking up or asking when we can rank up, or when are we actually approved, when is the roster actually approved. So in this case, it's just clear for everybody. There's no different date for anybody. You can rank up after the schedule is released. So Sunday night, when that schedule comes out, you're good to rank up. Before then, you got to keep your team where they're supposed to be. So typically we run verification of the teams like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that weekend, tie up any loose ends. If you're looking for a player, if there's an issue with an account being privated, there's always stuff that needs to be done. You have a couple days to do it, but in this case, here's your cutoff day and it's crystal clear. The other thing that was changed here is that we've had a couple instances over the past maybe 2 or 3 seasons where teams join and they either want to go down a league or they want to go up a league, which happened once. Once the schedule comes out, you're in the league that you're in. I mean, you could, I guess, technically withdraw from the league, but you're not going to be moved to a different league once that schedule comes out. Jamikin.
So to specifically speak about after your team gets checked before the schedule comes out, like you can't rank up, what happens in situations where a player does rank up? What options does that team have?
I mean, I'm guessing that what would happen in that case if they ranked up before then is that we would then recalculate based on that.
What if
So
that
if
put them over the cap?
So
Well, then they would get moved at that point.
the first thing we would do is probably offer them to move up a
Right.
league, and if they do not comply, I mean, by Sunday, basically, we'd have to tell them, hey, you have until, like, let's say schedule releases at midnight, 11:59 a CST or something. We'll probably end up having to set a hard cutoff for captains. Again, just in theory, we'll say like 10 or 11 CST for the point of just having this conversation. That, hey, you guys have to decide if you're moving up a league or if we're dropping you and you're getting a refund, or if you're changing players, etc. But you're currently not eligible for the league you signed up for, kind of thing.
All right.
Benny, what do we got?
If they end up +1 in Heroic Winter, they will have to remove a player and have someone else that's eligible. Makes them eligible.
Yeah. They have to play tier 2 DPC.
Yeah. Tier 3. Is Benny trying to talk? I feel like no. You're not audible, Benny.
How about now?
You are now
There you
audible.
go. There you go.
Okay. So at risk of beating a dead horse, because I know this gets brought up probably every season, is there any thought to putting like a hard cap excuse me, on where players are allowed to rank up after eligibility is set? Because I know Gambit, I harass you pretty much every season to where I'm allowed to rank up to. And of course, it never matters because I've never really hit that point before. But I'm sure, to bring in an example from a couple seasons ago, I'm sure some people were unhappy about Jamie playing as a Divine in the, what was that, Challenger League Grand Finals or something like that. Is there any thought towards putting like a hard cap on where players are allowed to rank up to during the season?
So, yeah, to answer that question too. So there is a hard cap. It's not a public hard cap because we don't want people to know it, because otherwise people will just skirt the rules the entire time and just say, "Oh, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching the special number you guys have set." And we do reevaluate that number each season for terms of fairness. But there will likely not be a Jamie level of scenario again.
It was reassessed after Jamie.
Yeah, it was
essentially.
reassessed after Jamie.
And there is a cap. Yeah, there is a cap, and no, we're not gonna release it.
So I can understand why you wouldn't want to make it public, but isn't there also kind of an argument to be made for it being made public so that people stop harassing you about it? Or
No, absolutely not. It's worth every bit of harassment for people not to know. To be honest.
I mean, if you guys are willing to follow, fair enough, all right.
Yep, that's one of those rules that, like, if people knew, they're just gonna flirt with it all season.
Right.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Hello.
It's going well. So I had a question about rank eligibility and sandbagging. There's been some talk within my organization about whether or not the floor of 15 ranked games over whatever the interval of time is appropriate, which mostly came up because one time we ran into a Dota buff of a league player who had 17 ranked games over that interval and 450 unranked games at a 60% win rate. So we were curious, this person was clearly obeying the rules and clearly doing so in good faith, and I feel no malice toward this person. But I was curious whether or not there's a thought about implementing a rule to either raise the number from 15 to something higher, or to implement a rule to prevent exactly that case from happening, where the player is playing specifically and only unranked in order to avoid ranking up.
So yes, and Gambit may have something to add to this too. Yes, we are talking about, not for this coming season, but potentially season 39 and on, kind of seeing how things shake out with the total amount of ranked games played this coming season, and especially for some of the higher leagues, maybe tweaking that up a little bit, not to an extreme amount, but higher than 15. So that hasn't been discussed. If it's a case where it's a player who has some obscenely high win rate, but is only playing 15 ranked games, we do track those to a certain extent. And now that we have a process in place to, maybe nudge those players in the right direction and or say, hey, you got to play up a league. If there was a really extreme case, we would step in. But for most leagues, that's not an issue. It would more be probably the higher leagues that would be a consideration for.
Okay, that was all that I had a question for, was if there was whether or not there was some thought of implementing a higher floor, or how these sorts of edge cases that maybe don't need a black and white letter of the law, how they would be handled.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And we've got Naya. How's it going?
Heyo! Okay, so just going off more as to, I can't really remember what that last guy's name was. What he was talking about too as well. I think, glad to hear that you guys have a thought about it and have talked about it and implementing something in the future. I think something we do need to remember and think about is that here we're not a professional league, we're an amateur league. Many of these people here, as we seeing like people complain enough as it is with having to have 15 ranked games because some people just don't have the time because this is just something they're doing for fun. This is something that they do on their pastime. Where either it's because they're busy with work or with school or traveling because they're seeing the world like Fav is right now. It's just one thing we just need to keep in mind. Granted, there will be people. There's always going to be those people who look to take advantage of the rules, and I'm glad to hear that you guys will be keeping an eye on things like that. But I just thought I'd just bring that up to remind everyone that we're not looking. This league isn't meant to be like the TI, like Tier 1 Dota. No, this is something where people are able to get together, have fun, and have an enjoyable environment in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if it gives you any consolation, the number that we've thrown around is like 20 or 25 for higher leagues. It's not like 50 or 100. It would be a
I've been flirting with the idea of 30.
Yeah, we I think we flirted with 30 for like heroic. But yeah, we're not intending on implementing anything extreme, and definitely not this season at all.
I honestly think like if there was an extreme case that needs to be resolved, it'd be involving Greco, because seriously, like the amount of games he doesn't play and like he intentionally loses, like I think he needs to have like a very higher mark for
He only
himself.
plays custom games. He's really gaming the
Seriously.
system.
Rocket League too as well, so that's all I gotta say. Okay. How'd I jump down? You just kick me?
Oh, we can do that too. Like to
I
get kicked.
gotcha.
I appreciate it.
All right, we'll take two more things on this one because we're still only in the second thing here, and I think there'll be a lot of questions about the third.
So we're going through each of these individually, so it will take more time. But I do want to stay on track and respect everyone's times and not take too long on each individual topic.
Yeah, we've got about 15 sections, and we're only 2 in after a half an hour. So
yeah, some of these again will be redundant with just basic changes. Did you invite someone to speak already?
No. What you got, Jammo?
So, what in situations where a whole team has like 15 ranked games, they get approved, whatever, we're allowed to rank up, and then they just all explode in ranked games, and now they're like plus 15 over the cap. Also, just for some stats on ranked games in 3 months, we pulled them at the start of, I think, this season or last season, and about 75% of people had over 25 ranked games in 3 months. 11% were between 15 and 25, and only 15% of the league was at like exactly 15 games. Just for
yeah,
I will say
that checks out.
To your original question, it would depend on
because like,
are you asking in the scenario like of old PSGS, would they get moved up for anything? Would something happen to old PSGS?
No, I mean, it could be an example, like we did explode in rank, but like
everyone gained like a
there
full
were
badge
teams that had exactly 15 ranked games and they weren't playing, and then we were allowed to play, and then suddenly they're hitting 50, 60, 70, 80 ranked games in 3 months. And they're just like clearly just abusing the fact that, we only have to get 15, we sit at 15, and then after we just play ranked to our heart's content and like actually rank up and play the game. I don't know. It seems kind of scummy to me, is my thing.
So all I'll say to that is it does mean that those 60, 70, like let's just say as your example, those 60, 70 games are basically going to be the next season's 15. And I mean, if they rank up, it means they're not going to be playing in that same league again, right? So like that'll still be a plus on our side. I would almost, I want to say encourage only playing 15, but I encourage people still playing a lot of ranked games during the regular season, because if they gain MMR, it means they won't be in the same league. They won't be back in the same league the next season, right?
I understand that argument, but that's like the solution will come next season when they're gone, kind of thing. Like the damage still gets done to all those players playing in that league.
If you're looking at it from that sense, yes, but I don't know. I would almost beg to argue that like very few people only play 15 games, like, or only have like 15 games in between seasons, unless they took a break, right?
Yeah. which
Yeah.
does
I
happen.
don't.
Like there are
I will-
reasons for people to have 15 games. Like I'm not for pushing it really higher. I'm just saying.
I will say, I don't know if this makes you feel any better about it. I don't think there has ever been a situation where a team has done that, ranked up, ended at plus 15, and then all 5 players quit the league and never played again. I don't think that's ever happened. So, like this phantom team that joins AD2L in Challenger League, ranks up to Conqueror League, and then never plays Dota again. I mean, theoretically that could happen, but most of the time teams stick around. And so if they explode, maybe because they're in a ranked and they're in an environment where they are learning a lot and getting better as a team really fast, the next season, if they come back, guess what? They're playing in Warrior or Conqueror or what have you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, we got 2 more. Let's try to get through these quickly. What you got, Tyro?
All right, just in a quick reference to the number of ranked games we have to play, I would almost be more for pushing a percentage requirement of unranked to ranked instead of trying to raise the number of ranked, because the other guy made a good point where some people just don't have a lot of time to play Dota. And then again, there was a point made before where it's some people are spamming 60, 70 games of regular unranked Dota and keeping their bare minimum of ranked way down. So like I said, I'd prefer to see like a balanced percent requirement, maybe 50, 40%, whatever that number would be. And throughout Turbo, that's not regular Dota throughout the other modes. But in terms of spamming unranked in AD2L, I don't think that should be allowed.
I don't think anybody's ever suggested that. That's an interesting idea. I think we'll put that on the back burner. The percentage idea is interesting. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your time, guys.
And last one for this one, Stanny, what you got?
Hello again. So I actually had a question about this. So you keep saying rule here. Obviously, I clown around and make the content for the Champions League currently this season, and I kind of had an ongoing joke throughout the early portions about the amount of players that actually didn't even have 15 ranked games, let alone any ranked games in the last 3 months. But all of those players were admitted into Champions League. So we say rule here, and maybe Naya was disclosed this information in the chat, like the Champions channel or something like that, Captain's channel, I should say. But wasn't made aware to me by any means. So is there like some secret workaround here where it's like if players don't have 15 games, like they can make a request to get in?
I believe we made.
I think we made an exceptions to champions too.
We did. We made 3 in Champions League.
Oh.
I believe we made 7 exceptions overall across all leagues, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I
and
remember
3 of them were in Champions League. They were all for various reasons that were people wrote very long messages and had legitimate reasons. One of them, they had actually played all of their games on an alt account that was very close to their main account, but was slightly lower. But it was a small enough amount that even if they had played, it would not have changed their overall weight of their team. So it was not like trying to gain a competitive advantage. There were just a couple situations like that. We do not give out exceptions on a regular basis. I think, like I said, 7 players out of 400 and something got ranked exceptions.
There was the only
Something like
player
that.
I remember there was a player who I think hadn't done any of his games, and we basically calculated if he like won all of his ranked games or like had double down tokens. We like I think did that into account and put him at whatever badge that would put him at basically for doing his 15. Like if he had played 15, won them all, he would have been X MMR. We just went up from there. And if their team was still under the cap, then we basically let that player play.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking because I mean, when we say rule, right? It's
We
written
do
somewhere.
again, like he said,
But
7
if
exceptions
it's like an
across
Gotcha,
500 players roughly.
Alrighty. Well, just checking it. Thanks for the answers.
Yep. Okay. Before we get any more questions about this one, we've actually kind of already addressed the next section, which is player account rules. So this one should be pretty quick. The main changes to this section are that Smurf accounts, I know there have been different ways of logging them in the past. For a while, we didn't track them at all. Early 30s seasons. It was just something that each captain had to submit before that week's match to the other captain, and that was it. And then it was captain's chat. Now it is in a centralized location that everybody can see. If you are a team or if you are a player that is coming back, you have to log those in Smurf Island in the spreadsheet, or we do not consider them disclosed. And we will be cracking down on that this season. There was some misunderstandings about that this past season. Moving forward, that is in the rules. It's clear, so there should be no more confusion around that. Two other really brief things. We had a couple issues this season with people's names being kind of borderline or obscene. Their player names or in-game names that we had to send messages about. If you're thinking that maybe your name is not appropriate and crosses the line, it probably does. So maybe don't have that be your username when you're playing in AD2L. And then the last thing that we've already talked a lot about, actually over the last couple minutes, is the sandbagging discussion. Basically, if we feel or we see proof of intentionally throwing games, which is very rare, and the burden of proof for this is very high, it's not something that comes up often. In general, as long as you're not cheating, we're just going to be moving those teams or those players to a higher league. If it happens during the season and it seems like it's blatant, happens at the end of a season, so that maybe the next season the team, you gained a bunch of rank and then you're de-ranking on purpose so that by the beginning of the next season you can play in the same league again or something crazy like that. There's a lot of hypotheticals. We will step in and address that as it happens. But again, the burden of proof for that is very high. Lots of people go on win streaks and loss streaks. The goal is not to penalize people for having a losing streak. It happens. Anything you want to add to that, Gambit?
No, that about covers it.
Right. Greco, what you got?
This only pertains if their metal could potentially be changed, correct? They can throw games all they want during their 15, but as long as their metal may or may not be changed, then it's fine.
I think it would probably depend on the situation.
So
let's say the situation is we are trying to balance so we don't potentially go over our rank. So we may win 2, but then 2 of those will go ahead and intentionally lose, so that our rank doesn't go up, but we're not necessarily losing the drop of metal.
If that happens and we can conclusively agree that that is what's happening, we would move that player or that team up, I think, after this change.
Okay, what would be conclusive evidence?
That's a good question. I think it would be situational because I think that's going to look different in every situation.
Five-man mid running it down in a rank game?
Here's part of it, too. If we tell you exactly what we think is conclusive evidence, everyone will just avoid those specific things.
So don't 5-man mid run down the lane in a rank game.
All I can say,
I would say don't do that. Yes, I would say in general that's a bad idea.
If you think something would look like intentionally losing and griefing, or not really griefing, but intentionally losing, I would just not do that.
Okay, I wanted to be sure because that happened last season. I brought it up, but I was, it wasn't then. So I wanted to just check to see if it is this season.
Yeah. I would say this kind of applies to all rules that have been changed and not just this one. A lot of things that have been changed are in direct response to shenanigans that happened over the past season or two, where we are now directly addressing them in the rules rather than having it be an edge case where there's not really a way to appeal to a specific rule that addresses that.
Okay.
a lot of it's reference point too. It's so when you make a ticket asking why am I being punished for this, we can kind of go back to these rules and say, well, it's in the rules. Did you not read the rules? Kind of.
Right.
That's a big portion of it as well. We have BDL.
The illustrious Licky. What do we got?
Hello. So glad to be here. My question, just wanted to clarify something real quick. About the monitor and censor obscene and inappropriate player names. The first part of this question, does this extend also to the sponsors that people put in their names? I assume it does.
Yeah, I would assume if you've got an obscene sponsor that you probably shouldn't. Yeah.
Okay, and then the second part was the wording. Sub, when you were talking about it, you mentioned the names that people use when they're playing in AD2L. Does this also extend to their like general just like account name that they're like using for like everyday Dota, or is it specifically will only like police what people have when they come to like play in ticketed lobbies?
I don't think we want to go down the slippery slope of policing within reason what people want to do outside AD2L. If you want to do something outside AD2L that's edgy or whatever, that's kind of on you. But if you want to play a league game, you need to, I think, adhere to the expectations of the league while you're playing in the league game. But if you want to, I mean, if you want to go play pubs and have your name or your sponsor or whatever be something crazy, I guess that's on you, as long as that doesn't, reflect back or trickle into something that's going on in the league. Because obviously we can't police that for 500 players.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to clarify that. Apparently Hungry Phoenix wants me to ask about political sponsors. Thoughts? I don't know what he means by that,
I'm sure that's fine, probably. I don't know. That
Worried
seems
about
that
what he
seems
means
fine.
by that now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we'll just ignore him.
Political
The league's
sponsors,
probably
yeah.
better for it if we ignore Hungry Phoenix.
We had a player named Bernie Sanders, so I think we're cool with political
Yeah,
sponsors.
that's probably fair.
All right, that's all.
All right. Bring up man, the myth, the legend. Oak it again.
Jamokin for round 4. What you got?
Okay. So in the player count rules, it says a player must have a minimum of 15 ranked games played on their highest MMR account within 3 months of the pre-schedule roster checks. What does that mean? Because last time that was kind of ambiguous and people were given over 3 months to get their games. Such as DOPS.
Correct. So if we generally do pre-schedule roster checks on Thursday prior to the Sunday that the schedule comes out. Maybe one year it was Friday, but I think in general it's Thursday. If you do not have those, there's a couple things that can happen. We don't have all this spelled out in the rules because honestly that would be a section all on its own. But if the reason that you don't have those is because you're currently playing them and we just ran it right before you were playing them, we're probably going to let you play. If the reason that you don't have those is because you have 0 and you just don't want to abide by the rules, or you played them on an alt or whatever, yeah, you're probably not playing. So there's a lot of gray in that. It really comes down to intent, and it also comes down to the player in question. Is this somebody who's generally at the same rank every season? Is this somebody who has a lot of volatility with their ranked and is probably intentionally not playing 15? I think there's a lot that goes into that. The idea is that everybody needs to have those games done on the same day. And then if you don't, essentially you've got a couple days to either make things right based on the directives that we give you, or we're just going to say, based on XYZ, you're not eligible to play at this time. And I think either situations are viable depending on the situation. It's just hard to say because there's so many factors that could factor into that.
And then lastly, I just want to comment on the naming thing. Under the behavior and conduct in AD2L, it does say, it kind of says like no politics or religion chat. So I also feel like that should extend to names, sponsors, and team names, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to have like a person's name, like if you want your sponsor to be Bill Clinton, that's hilarious. If you want your sponsor to be like something really politically divisive.
Okay, I see.
I
Okay.
think
I
that's
just wanted
different.
to
You know what I'm saying?
Get a
Yeah.
little
If you're making
clarification. Yeah, I'm picking that up.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right. Moving along to team captain rules here. This section did not have a lot of changes to it. The biggest one that went into effect for team and captain rules is honestly, we just cleaned up some of the wording around what we expect of captains. It is no longer a requirement that you have your team tag in your Discord name. That was sort of an old holdover from before we had spreadsheets to track. So now that we have the spreadsheet to track who is the current captain, that's not needed anymore. I would say it's probably still encouraged. If you want to do it, it definitely makes it easier to find you, but you don't have to per the rules anymore. But you should be proud of the team you're playing on, you know? The biggest change here is that if you are a captain that, and I'll quote the rules, displays a lack of competency in following the rules and decorum, we may disallow you from captaining in future seasons. And that may mean one season, that may mean indefinitely. We had a couple issues with captains this season making tickets or not making tickets and just kind of showing a complete disregard for doing any kind of preparation or knowing what the rules were or trying to follow rules at all. If you want to be a captain, kind of the bare minimum is read over the rules. If something needs to happen, just refer back to them. They're not that long. It's not that hard. You can use the search function. Nobody else on your team has to read the rules, technically, as long as you're making sure they follow them. But one person's got to read them, and that's got to be the captain. So,
if you're a captain and you're not like entirely sure of the wording of a rule or exactly how it pertains, just make a ticket and ask, because I feel like a lot of our issues this season and in past seasons, people have quoted being like, oh, I didn't know. Well, as a captain, you should definitely know, but like also as a captain, like we're admins, we're here to help you. We're not like trying to bully you out of anything. We're literally here to basically hear the guidelines, hear the rules. Please follow them, please read them. Like it'll help us both out.
there is no stupid question. I will answer a ticket for just about any reason. You can ask whatever you'd like, and I will not make fun of you. Yeah,
You're gonna have
ask
to answer,
away.
You're gonna have to answer whoever joins to speak in a second. Now that you said that, so
Yes, Heartrun. Okay, well, if there's no questions on that, that's awesome. Season structure, very little changed here. We basically just updated the wording of how the season is currently structured. So really no changes here, just making it more clear for first-time teams and captains. Bye weeks. This one may be have some questions about. This is a totally new section in the rules. We felt like we needed a separate section under the schedule to address specific bye week instances, why we have buys, what happens if we go from a buy to not a buy or not a buy to a buy, depending on a team withdrawing or, you know, a team getting removed like we had a couple seasons ago with the Breaking Ben situation, etc. We went over this. This actually took probably longer than the whole rest of the rules put together to get the buys fair and balanced for everybody and for every situation where there could be a buy. You got anything to add to that, Gambit?
no. So just because I already know Greco's requesting to speak. This was mostly an issue in Champion. I don't think any other place had this exact issue, but it's just, again, it's a lot of it's clarification on how the buy system works in the event that a team quits or leaves, and like how adding and losing the bye week basically affects the rest of the season. And hopefully it doesn't get too complex with multiple teams leaving, but again, that's our hope. Most of the time, I mean, I don't think we've ever had more than 2 teams leave in the same season. I could be misremembering. But Greco's be invited to speak.
What you got, Greco?
Yeah, so in season, what season are we in? 37 currently?
7.
Yeah. So 36, when a team left, and say there's even teams, I don't know the exact number, 14, 16, what have you, and a team left and created a bye, they were labeled, and it was Pot of Lust and I think Conquer. It was Pot of Lust in parentheses. It was withdrew - bye, and this ensured that no team who had already played them would have to face a bye week. Is this something that we can do instead of removing a team and putting them in a different division so teams don't get a bye when they've already played the team that left the league?
So I think I got a little lost. Sorry, I was trying to multitask.
Okay, so
I'll be honest.
I'll repeat. So if you look in like anything for season 37 season 36 Pot of Lust, there was like 14 or 16 teams. I don't remember the exact amount. There was an even number. The team dropped out, I think, at like week 3. When they dropped out, the admins, you guys, went in and changed basically the team name to Pot of Lust, in parentheses put withdrew - bye. And basically what this ensured was that nobody who had already played Pot of Lust could be placed against the bye week.
Correct.
Because it's not like the system isn't going to register like a new team. Like if you were to remove them and put them into a different division and then replace them with bye, it registers as a brand new team. So anybody's eligible to play against them.
Correct.
I believe that there is an issue this season where in Champions League that this was done and a team was from like even was removed, and essentially that bye slot was assigned to play a team who had already had a bye. So my hopes is if there's an even number and a team withdraws from the league, we just do the same as we did in the Pot of Lust situation, but withdrew bye so that a team doesn't have to get scheduled to bye who's already played that team who's left.
Yeah. So the problem with the Champion League, and this is why it is being addressed with the bye week, is the short answer. The long answer is what happened in Champions League is a team left, making it even to odd, and we had a bye week, and then another team quit, and so then they ended up also being a bye week, and we ended up having 2 bye weeks. Basically, it was like part of the problem there, and so it's addressed in the bye weeks now. So basically, I believe in that scenario, which again, hopefully very rare, but I believe in that scenario, both teams basically get moved to another division, and there'll be no bye weeks, like no more bye weeks to be played rather, and whoever played the bye week, those will now count as 2-0s, and whoever played the other team that withdrew, those are also basically stuff gets corrected. It's going to end up messing a little bit with Swiss format, but we think it's going to be a much better system, and there will be no like scenarios where if like say you got the bye week and you got the team that withdrew, you won't get 4 wins no matter what. You'll have to settle for 3 out of those 4 games that you could have potentially played. But it's hopefully again addressed in the bye weeks. What we had in Champions this season was again a big cause of us rewriting these rules, specifically writing them out like this.
And I wanted to double check real quick because I think I read this, but now I can't find it. Once you register for a league, you can no longer be placed into another league.
As a team.
As a team, that's
as a team.
As
so
a
there's
team.
no more moving up
no
and down.
T6
leagues.
situation.
There's no more T6 situations.
Once the schedule comes out, we will
Your
not
team
move
is
you.
locked into that division.
If you register for the wrong league, and then we come time to move things around, and then we say, hey, we got 3 days before the schedule comes out. Clearly, you registered for the wrong league. Like that's different.
Once the schedule's out, you're set though. You're on that.
But once the schedule's out, you are not moving. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to tiebreakers. Nothing has changed here for the overall wording of tiebreakers, which has overall been pretty well received. It's definitely a lot more transparent than our previous ways of breaking ties were. Many thanks to Fred, who did a lot of legwork when we were initially doing that in feedback. We have updated tiebreakers to also include explicit verbiage on how we break a tie when there is a strength of schedule tie, and for when there are non-dividing positional ties, as in not the ties that are initially broken by what you see at the
1, 4,
top.
and 8.
Yeah. So these are things that have never been explicitly in the schedule, and it's more just been common practice. But we've got them written down now. It's easy to refer back to. Just makes it more transparent for the league as a whole. And easy now that if you're looking at it and you're like, hey, I calculated our team's strength of schedule and I'm wondering how it's going to go. Now you actually have a concrete place to look at the outcome of that. Cool. No questions about tiebreakers.
We have one question, actually.
One question about tiebreakers.
Yep. From Crimson.
Mr. Crimson, sir.
How's it going, friends? Was just curious if we could add to the tiebreakers a specific stipulation in the case of a 4-way tie for one slot, as happened in Explorer for upper bracket this season. I wasn't on the team that was left out of that 4-way tie, but it seems odd that we had a consolidation from 3 teams when the 4th team had the exact same regular season record, and it would have been simple to implement a 2-round playoff instead of leaving one team out.
I'm not against considering that when it's a 4-way tie in that. What are your thoughts on that?
It's basically just a regular playoff, like a mini playoff bracket. Yeah, I was about to say, I hope Fred's here so he's listening so he can kind of give us some
I'm
input.
actually gonna bring Fred in. Yeah.
Can you say again what happened?
There were 4 teams which finished 8 and 4 at the end of Explorer, and the top 3 teams by strength of schedule, teams number 2 and 3 played each other, and the winner of that advanced to play team number 1, leaving team number 4, according to the rules, in the lower bracket automatically without a chance to break the tie because they were 4th by strength of schedule. I'm saying that it would be better if we just had all 4 teams play a 2-round thing. 2 best of 1s between team 1 and 4, and teams 2 and 3 advancing to a best of 1 between the winners of those games to break the tie, instead of letting a team that through no fault of their own, when there's a 4-way tie for one slot, just gets automatically booted from the tiebreaker instead of letting them have a right like teams 1, 2, and 3 do to advance.
And they were playing for one slot, correct?
Yes, it was 4 teams for one slot.
This is probably going to cause a lot of hullabaloo, but then the admins fucked up. It should have been 2 best of 1s, and included all 4 teams.
As written in the rules currently, that is not the case. The rules
really?
as
Maybe
written,
I'm stupid.
The rules as written say that when there are 3+ teams for one slot, the top 3 teams have 2 versus 3 advance to play against 1. And in the specific case of 4 teams for one slot, that seems obviously unfair for me. And I felt for my season-long opponent team in Explorer Division that they didn't get a chance to play in the tiebreaker like the rest of us.
I think this is a pretty reasonable suggestion to just implement now, because I think in practice this makes sense if it's a 4-way tie.
I didn't know if Fred had a specific reason why if you didn't think you let, like if it is just a communication issue and Fred was like it was supposed to be on there, that makes more sense to me as well, because we actually started out implementing it like just a regular playoff bracket, like four round, like 2 rounds best of 1s, like winners play each other for the top spot. And then I can't remember which one of us like looked and we were like, hold on, that's not how the rules say it's supposed to be done. So we changed it to how the rules said, but we're kind of like looking at it like it kind of makes more sense the other way. But it would also make sense if Fred was like, it should have been that way from the start, and we just kind of messed up maybe somewhere.
It should have been that way from the start.
Okay.
Yeah, we will update that. That's really good feedback, because I think that makes a lot more sense than the current way that's iterated for 4 teams with 1 slot.
Just for the sake of clarity, it may be best to write that as being the rule for 4+ teams. You know what I mean? Like if you had a 5-way tie for 1 slot, you kick out the 5th team instead of having a consolidation from 3. But just like, I just wanted to point this out. This was a thing that happened in Explorer that felt unfair and easily resolvable.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that.
And then we still have Cheddar Bear with the question.
Welcome.
Hello. Oh, just like Hollywood, it's an honor. So it's sort of in the same like concept of the bye week and the tiebreakers, I guess, since we're kind of wrapping that all in together. Is there any possibility that we could change in terms of like the format of tiebreakers for, say, a three-way tie that we haven't all played against each other? So again, to no fault of our own, somehow it ended up in Voyager that 3, 4, and 5 this season were all had the same win amount. Two of us have played against, I guess, the top team of the league, and I think one of them didn't. And like performance based, it was just like barely offset. But we all somehow, again, to no fault of our own, did not play each other at all during the regular season. And so, would it make any more sense to just have more of a simple best of one round robin than having one team automatically bumped up? Because it, again, this affected 2 upper bracket spots and 1 lower bracket spot. And so one automatically got to go to the upper bracket spot off of 1 SOS that we all didn't play against each other. And then the other 2 had to play a best of 3 for the upper and lower bracket side.
So,
and in this case, and I'm presenting this as in the case, I know it's going to be a little more rare, but in the case of if all 3 teams have not played each other in the regular season, but managed to have all the same record.
I noticed that Fred's still in here, so Fred, if you want to speak, I have an idea of why it's implemented this way. But
so the biggest reason is so round robin would be 3 best of ones, one after another, which we already tried to avoid because the 2 best of ones in a night is has been unpopular enough in other various formats, and then also that best of one round robin can end up in a tie still, and then we're just screwed because the league will never be forced to like play on a day other than Thursday.
Yeah, that hit every point I was going to make. So
okay, I mean,
it's one of those. The whole tiebreaker system. There are a lot of, again, as Crimson mentioned before, like 1 slot 4 teams. Like that was something we missed. And there are a lot of formats like that one specifically this season where the 4th strength of schedule is just out. There are a lot of scenarios where like strength of schedule does end up playing a part in your tiebreaker, but they all have definitive like spots that can be taken from them. And so it's easy for us to use this system, and basically it guarantees us only 1 week of non-mishaps and mess-ups for us to move into playoffs like cleaner.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels shitty that like just based off of, again, not playing that, like one team automatically doesn't have to participate at all. They automatically get bumped up.
There are a ton of unfortunate outcomes that can happen, but it's just the fact that this system does basically secure all the spots for a team in like the cleanest manner we can basically output.
Without going to multiple weeks of tiebreakers.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, there's nothing wrong with playing best of ones all night long, day after day. Just people being cowards. These are the same cowards that just want to sit around and play unranked and turbo. They're the same people. All right. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. All right.
I think we can go to stand-in rules now.
Moving along, stand-in rules and player replacement rules, I'm actually going to lump in together. For the sake of time and also just because very little changed. So stand-in rules, the only thing that changed here was we now have, instead of 90 minutes, 30 minutes being the only 2 penalties, there is a cleanup, and this also applies to the forfeit rules that go later. Which was something that was wildly popular when it was suggested initially in feedback. So previously it was 90 minutes was a 30-second draft penalty. 30 minutes was a 70-second draft penalty if you have a late stand-in approved. Now, if you have a late stand-in in Season 38 at 0 minutes, so essentially at game time, it is max draft penalty. It is no longer 70 seconds. If it is 10 minutes past the scheduled game time, game 1 is forfeited, and there is an 110-second draft penalty for additional games. We had a lot of scenarios this season where teams were trying to use stand-ins at 15 minutes after game time. Now that the series is no longer forfeited after the first game, it's just a game 1 forfeit. There is a lot more leeway for you to work something out in the subsequent 15 minutes. So that's where this comes in. Moving down really quickly to player replacement rules. The only thing that was changed here was just the wording was cleaned up to clarify using a stand-in versus a replacement after the 6th series of groups is played. So really no changes functionally to anything with player replacements. So I'm sure the questions are going to be about the draft penalties for stand-ins. So let's grab Jamo. What you got?
Can we make it a thing? As you know, I asked in a ticket, was moved to overflow. It doesn't seem to make the doc, but I just wanted to bring up when people send in stand-ins, can they also send all associated Smurf accounts in the ticket so the opposing captain doesn't have to? I already have to like scout a whole new player, and then I have to go to Smurf Island, and then I have to check all this stuff, especially when it's a late stand-in. It fucking blows, to be honest. I don't know. It feels unfair to me when you're the one who can't have all their players show up. I don't know. It just seems like ass.
I don't think that's a terrible idea. Potentially given here's the thing. Here's what I don't want to happen. And maybe Gambit can weigh in on this too. I don't want a situation where a captain is, I don't know, they're players in the emergency room. They didn't know about it. They got stuck at work, whatever. They have to get a last second stand in. They're eating a 110-second penalty. They're scrambling, communicating with people trying to get it to work. They forget to give the Smurfs. They end up having to forfeit a game. That feels like that's not in the spirit of the rule, the way that we want it to go. The Smurfs are available for anybody to look at. I think if they submit that and they remember to, that's great. But I think the moment they submit that and you've got time to review, the first thing you're doing is pulling up Smurf Island.
I mean, but are Smurfs even for stand-ins? Like, there's not necessarily a Smurf Island account made for like. They might not actually have their accounts.
I see what you're.
Yeah. I was like, maybe some's not picking up what he's putting down. No, if there is a stand-in
for like an established player, yeah. If it's a stand-in and they've got Smurfs,
I mean, I think established players too.
disclosed,
If you're making a stand-in ticket, so we've also added, I believe, in a 15-minute optional buffer time extension, right, to scout a player at hand, right? So the opposing captain can take up to 15 minutes, like basically until he or she is ready. From that point, that stand-in is confirmed by the admins and the player or the captain himself. It has to be all. I say it has to be all three. If you don't respond, and like you're sitting in lobby, and we know you're actively sitting in lobby, like we're gonna get on you. But if you're posting a stand-in, post all of their Smurfs too. It should not be up to the other captain to have to look through Smurf Island, like especially for late stand-ins. Like they should not be scrambling looking at Smurf Island. They've only got 15 minutes to scout. Just give them all the accounts. You've got 15 minutes as well to give them all the accounts. Basically, is the way that I see that.
Okay, yeah, I think we can just have that. I can add that as a blurb here. Then that in that 15-minute period, you need to be also assisting. If there's any additional accounts that need to be disclosed, you need to be assisting with that.
Because I'm assuming too, like the stand-in at hand is probably in your voice chat. You probably already talked to them. Like, just ask, like, hey, how many other accounts do you have? I need all of them right now.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah, I'm
All
fine
right,
with
that
that.
was my only question.
No, I just misunderstood the initial part. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I was rushing back with my popcorn. Sorry.
All good. Greco.
So I don't know if this goes with this, but since we're talking about stand-ins or what, just stop me if it's for later. When you have your 5 in the lobby, do all 5 of these players refer to the players that are supposed to be there, or could it be any 5? For example, if you have 4 players and you just bring in Joe Smo to sit in lobby to hold and say, hey, I've got 5 in lobby, therefore I can no longer be given a forfeit. Is that allowed? Like, can I indefinitely hold the lobby because, well, I'm still waiting for my guy and there's technically 5 players in the lobby?
If you're, I want to answer this actually.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Like, let's say like they have to be your players. If one of them is awaiting approval in a ticket, I would say that counts until an admin is able to answer your ticket. I would also say like, you know, if you decline a stand-in and there is no admin available, I mean, it's hopefully not going to be an issue in the next few seasons because I'm not going to be playing, and if I do play, it's not going to be as a captain. Sub's not playing next season. Dop's thinking about taking a break next season. I'm sure we'll have plenty of admins to answer tickets at 9 Eastern, like default time. But they have to be your players.
Okay. So
or potentially your players, right? Like if you're actively trying to get this person to be accepted as a stand-in, I guess that could count as a technicality, but
my question is, what if it's past that 10 minutes and just Joe Smo is just sitting in the lobby? And then all of a sudden after that 10 minutes, where technically should be a forfeit, you then make a ticket, say 13 minutes after game start. Is that a forfeit or is that allowed because now we're waiting on a stand-in approval?
If it's past 10 minutes, that would be a forfeit for game 1.
You would forfeit game 1, so that's the new forfeit rules, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, you'd still be forfeiting game 1, and you'd be requesting that Joe Schmo for game 2, basically.
Right. Even if the guy's in the lobby, it does not matter. He's technically
correct. If you had not submitted the ticket
empty slot, so once it's at 13 minutes, then it's forfeit game 1, and then you wait for your approval for game 2. Correct? Am I following?
Correct.
Yes.
As long as I'm following what you just said.
I'm not sure if I'm following sometimes. I appreciate it, guys.
Cheddar, what you got?
Oh, good to be back. Long time listener, first time caller. So this is sort of a concept with and this is more of a playoff thing, but maybe possibly a broad-based rule. And for teams that are constantly like in fucking turmoil and shit like that, can we possibly limit the amount a single person is used as a stand-in? And so this is kind of a thing more for playoffs. So like when teams get eliminated, basically one team that like drops down to 4 or whatever, they pick a player up basically as their permanent almost replacement. This is more of like kind of like the no-hose situation with Challenger. And rather than dealing with the whole stand-in issue, or I guess like limit a team's ability to constantly use and call upon one person to stand in for the season. So they either have to get a permanent replacement at some point, or they have to get other like stand-ins. It's kind of like either the shit or get off the toilet. And so this way, maybe like, I don't know, have a player that's maximum used like 2 times in the season as a stand-in for one team, rather than just like a chunk of the season, or even during playoffs, for instance, they can't just keep picking players off the elimination base to stand in for their team to better themselves, like if they're in that kind of mindset. So is there any possibility that we could like have limitations on how one person is stood in for a single team? And this way also, I think, would help out with like playoffs when teams get eliminated, that people don't poach basically a player to stand in for them.
Possibly. I'm not like super opposed to the idea of limiting the amount of times you could maybe stand in. I will say it's already like very tough already. Like if you basically get a permanent stand-in, that is using one of your 2 stand-ins each week. You do have to constantly make tickets each week for that. And that player still has to be below whatever you're replacing them for. So like if, in the case of, we'll just use Nose as an example. Ash was like legend 1 or 2. I can't remember exactly what. Like no-hose is always going to be limited to not only getting a legend 1 or 2 below player, but also using one of their 2 stand-ins each week. And in the case that basically almost happened today, they almost had 2 stand-ins. Like if they have one more player that can't make it, it's just a forfeit. And they just end up losing that series, right? All because they've got a permanent stand-in who's not on the official roster. But
that's also a thing. I feel like the responsibility of a captain, to figure this, stuff out sooner. Like it shouldn't be a sort of default or the advantage of a captain that's just constantly in turmoil or frustrated with players, and so they're basically posturing themselves to pick up players to stand in to better their position. Like, a person could make the argument that a slight rank decrease on the stand-in for like this week might be harmful. I'd maybe make the argument on the opposite side, where if they're having turmoil and synergy with a certain player that they booted out, now they're standing in a player that they're going to work with, and that gives them an advantage. And so it's one of those, again, like I said, I would love teams to actually commit to players and quit kicking and booting players. Like, it'd be really nice, if we quit encouraging captains just to be, PPOSs with like their players and how they manage teams season to season. I mean, it'll come in hand with the behavior topic a little bit later on, but yeah, at least for the stand-in portion, I guess my offer is limit a stand-in for the entire season to 2 games for one team. So like,
I think
say sub wants to stand in for a certain team, sub can be used twice throughout the entire season. That'd be the thing.
I will say too, I like the idea at first, and now I'm thinking about, we have a lot of teams that do kind of have like 5 to 6. We'll just call them 5 to 6 man rosters, where they really have like a 6 guy that's kind of just their dedicated stand-in, and they use him as a stand-in at any time they. I'll just throw out some names. Fourth World Marshals basically had a 6-man roster for 2 seasons now, and the first season he played, his sixth man was actually a higher rank, but he was on the official roster because he wanted to play with Crusader in Warrior or something like that. So there are going to be, it would be a hard to implement rule just across all boards, like PZR, like kind of like a close friend group, Hobbit holes as well. I don't know. It'd be kind of weird too if like we only let like you stand in twice for R&B as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are cases where I would
never do that. But
okay, all right. But you know what I mean? Like, it'd be hard to implement on a massive scale, so it may not be that plausible. But I like the idea at start. But maybe...
the goal is, again, for less kicking, less stand-ins, and people to actually commit to their rosters, and basically to force captains to at some point make a decision on a permanent replacement rather than.
I love the intent of the idea. I love the intent of the idea for.
Yeah, so something to be debated, I guess, across the next season as a potential.
Yeah.
Eric, thanks.
And then we got
Naya.
Hello. All right. So in the situations to where you're in previous communication with the captain of the other team days prior to this, and they're looking to reschedule to make the time for the game to be later, and because one of their guys may be running late and they're not too sure about that, and you can't adjust your time just because of how your team schedule is. It's with you not being able to adjust your time, and then they give you that last minute stand-in. It's like, how will that kind of situation be handled based on these rules? Does that make sense?
So you're saying they had the opportunity to give the stand-in earlier.
So they know previously that their guy may be late, and they make no preparations for it beforehand, and are now throwing it on you.
Well, I mean, now they would get a much stricter draft penalty at game time and or a forfeit, depending on how late they throw that on you, where previously it would just be 70 seconds.
And like you as a captain, if you were, again, proposed a late stand-in, you'll have an option to take 15 minutes in addition to whatever time like you still have. So like you'll have 15 minutes for scouting, basically, no matter what. Like, no matter how late it is, like, rather.
So in those instances where there's gonna be no changes, basically.
I mean, there are changes. I guess I'm struggling to see the scenario. Like, you like, let's say like they knew that they might have a player late, right? You didn't reschedule, correct?
Right.
And so it's we'll just use default time, 9 o'clock. It's 9:05. They're getting you stand-in information, right?
Right.
So now they take a 110-second penalty. Game could start up to as late as 9:20 if you guys desire it for scouting purposes. As of this current season, it would have just been a 70-second penalty. Game time is still 9 o'clock.
So there won't be like any extra punishments on something like this where you had time.
If it's a
And can
consistent issue, like with a certain
captains use that
captain,
as an excuse, as a reason to decline a stand-in? If like you knew ahead of time, you didn't prepare for it. It's like I'm not putting my team through the stress of having to now scout this new stand-in that you were thinking yourself were needing to have on your team, but just didn't get me the information until just now.
So the scenario that we're all tiptoeing around that you're referring to, I'm not going to like go into details about it, but the scenario that happened would have resulted in a forfeit under the rules moving forward. It would have been a game 1 forfeit. And then you would have had an additional amount of time to approve a stand-in for game 2. So there is a significant penalty versus what the current rules say, if that answers your question.
Not necessarily no, but at the same time, I see what you're saying too as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to read intent. Somebody can be being unprofessional and not a very good captain and not communicating well with you all week, and then they can legitimately have a player get hit by a car on their way home from work.
Yeah, situations like that is like that's
like
totally
this-
understandable.
Yeah,
It's
this
just the
can
part
happen.
where it's like you've known in a week in advance that you're going to need a stand-in, but yet you don't make any changes or preparations for it. But the other team, you've let the other team know that it's like that. At the same time, you haven't even given them any stand-in information.
I definitely think that that's something. If that was something that was going on a regular basis, that person would be probably disallowed from captaining, because that seems like that's just being negligent for no reason. And while that's not something we've done in the past, moving forward, if that's the way people are going to act, I would say that they are going to be uninvited from being the captain of a team. Yeah. So I do understand where you're coming from. Yes.
Okay. Is it possible for there to be captain changes mid-season, or no?
I mean, there have been in the past.
That would also have to depend on the severity, I think, of the situation.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would say, like, again, this is the one Courier 5, was Courier 5 cores. There was literally a player that we told, hey, specifically, like, we told the captain, hey, you're toggling, stop. And then we found out his whole team was toggling. And I was like, yo, what the fuck? So, like, again, cases like that where it's very obvious, yes, like there may be some mid-captain changes, of, like, you know, again, just general understanding of the rules. Like, if you can't read basic words, you probably shouldn't captain, right?
Right.
Yeah. So is there a chance? Yes. Will it be used? Probably, like, extremely sparingly. Best way to put it. Again, an extreme situation.
Okay. That's all I wanted.
All good. Thank you for the suggestion.
Fred has a quick clarifying question. We're going to try to go fast. Speed run time.
Hello.
Go for it, Fred.
So if there's a stand-in that is brought in and approved after 9 o'clock, let's say at 9:05, is it 15 minutes from when that stand-in gets approved, or 15 minutes after 9:15? So, like, the lobby would have to start by 9:30.
Oh, you're saying if they take
I'm
the
not gonna lie,
15-minute
I was
buffer
reading
time.
that line and wondering the same thing myself. So
Yeah, so if you're taking the 15-minute buffer time, then it just extends from whenever that buffer time would start. So if the game could potentially start as late as 9:25 based on the way that the rules are written.
If the stand-in, so like if the stand-in is brought and accepted at 9:10, you get 15 minutes from 9:10 to scout.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so it's a 15-minute extension of the time that the stand-in is approved.
Yep.
We'll just use
Yes.
that as the baseline.
Yes.
Okay, and then we
All right.
have Orion, I think.
Orion, what you got for us?
Yeah, so one thing real quick, I'm insulted to think that you guys would think that we would use cheddar for R&B ever. Like it's
I
not
knew
gonna
this was
happen.
coming up, dude.
And as another thing, why is it 15 minutes for the full roster of players to be in the lobby to start on time, but only 10 minutes for one stand-in?
A lot of that is because of additional scouting. So basically, like if you're sitting in lobby and it's 9, well, let's say it's 9 o'clock, and you're thinking, oh, okay, my player will make it on time, and then you find out what your player says, oh, I can't make it till 9:30, right? So then it's 9:05 or whatever. You have to get the stand in before 9:10. If it's 9:13, and you get the stand in, like you still got to scout, like you still got to play both games, and like you might be in a tougher scenario, I guess. Like, how best to put this?
Here, let me.
Maybe Sub should take this
No,
one.
no, it's fine. I just wanted to know why there was
the
a 15 and 10 minute difference. Like
the TLDR is we are going to give a longer buffer to a team to get all 5 of their actual players in than we are to give them for a stand-in.
Okay.
So we're willing to give a couple extra minutes if the team wants to play with their whole roster versus, if they're trying to shoehorn something together with a stand-in. That's the real reason why.
All right, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Moving along here, and we're going to move a little quicker. And actually, a lot of these sections will probably have no questions, which is kind of nice. These are pretty straightforward. Scheduling. There are no changes to scheduling. Games are still on Thursday nights. We've cleaned up the verbiage here, but there's no changes to the way that scheduling is communicated. If you need to do a reschedule, as a captain, you know how to do that. You contact the other captain. You find a mutually agreeable reschedule time. The same as the old rules. The default time is the scheduled time if both captains cannot agree on a reschedule. None of this has changed. Do we have a schedule question specifically?
Yeah, and then
Go
Lucky just
for it.
made an important note too. Please post it and reschedule, and it's not even for you and the other team. It's for casters. Like a lot of the time, you will have a bigger chance of getting your games casted, and it's also for us, so we can keep track of who to yell at if your game isn't played yet, and we don't know why.
Yes.
Has there been any thought of changing BO3 start times to 8 Eastern, but having the BO2s still at 9?
There has not, only because we have a lot of West Coast players that would not be off work in time to do that.
Fuck PST.
I as soon as he said fuck, I was like, he's gonna end as soon as he says PST. I already know, dude. I already know.
Moving along to forfeits. This was already in the rules. We've just expanded and kind of clarified the verbiage. So it is officially 14 minutes and 59 seconds by default. So once that clock hits 9:15 or 8:15, depending on what your time zone is or whatever, that is the forfeit time if the team is not in the lobby. Please screenshot it. If you tell us that they're not in the lobby and you don't screenshot it, it's really hard to verify and it gets messy. Please screenshot it if another team does not show up. A team that forfeits 3 of their matches is going to be removed from the league for the season. And then we just have, again, sort of a redux of the bye-week rules here, specifically as they relate to teams forfeiting and being removed from the league. So we're not going to go over those again. So it's really just the beginning of this forfeit section here for anybody that has any questions. Jamo.
Why do I need all my 5 players to show up to play? Why can't I play 4v5? Like, if I don't respect the other team, I feel like I should be allowed to play him 4v5. Like the old admins also, like before you guys, maybe Gamba was there, but I remember the old admins said it was fine to play 4v5. Like it wasn't an issue. If you wanted to, they said it's your prerogative. So when did we change to you have to have 5 players?
So here's the thing. I think if you would want to play 4v5, I'm gonna say you can get like an bot, but it's not gonna be good, man. You'd probably rather just take the forfeit with an easy bot.
If the other captain wants to let you play 4v5,
I would say it's fine.
Go
So
for
it's
it.
the other captain's call.
I mean,
that would.
If I'm the other captain and you ask, can I use an easy bot? I'm probably saying, yeah, fuck it, why not?
All right, that's
just me.
Yeah, I mean the same with the stand-in rules, the same with the rescheduling. Captains have a lot of leeway to decline penalties that are not set because of rules infractions. They're set because of like game time expectations. So if you know the other team and you know the situation that's going on and you still want to play the game out and it's late or they're using a stand-in or whatever, as a captain, you can say, I'm not going to enforce a draft penalty or take an extra 5 minutes, get yourself together, no worries. You have that prerogative as a captain. You do not have to take that. There's no expectation of that, but you do have that ability. We're not going to override you and say, no, this captain said you could play 4v5, the game's forfeit. Like if another captain wants to play you 4v5, I guess go for it.
And I'm getting Phoenix wants me to ask, the results will count, right? Like the game's still valid if I play 4v5, and they agree.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's fine. Would be interesting, but yeah, fine.
One of y'all have to do it. You got to win 4v5. I'm counting on somebody.
Yeah, someone's gonna have to show me a W playing 4v5.
Naya, what you got?
This might have also this coincide with what Greco brought up earlier about like with the stand-ins thing. Is so say like for having like the 5 people in lobby, what constitutes those 5 people? So like you have 4 people. So going off the website, you see the team, and there's only 4 people in lobby, and then there's a random 5th player there in that slot, 5th slot for the other team. Is that still like what Greco was referring to earlier about that's not acceptable if there isn't like a stand-in ticket made about information for that 5th player?
It's the exact same thing that Greco basically was asking. If you are actively working on getting said player to play as a stand-in, then until we respond to the ticket, it is considered an eligible player. But if we respond, it's not eligible, or if the other captain declines it, it's and they do have to have again some kind of reasoning and cause behind line. It's not just I don't want to play you guys because we'll get a free win if I decline this guy. No, that doesn't work.
And then the ticket has to be made. That stand-in ticket.
has to be made. That is the key.
Prior?
That is the key part.
Okay. So,
it has to be made
so the
before
ticket
the
could be
forfeit
made
time.
9 minutes after game time, then it still counts because it's still within that 10 minutes.
It's correct.
Slot, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a matter of just like making sure that ticket is made prior to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Next thing in forfeits section, and then where are you at again? I forgot where it's at. A team that forfeits 3 of their matches will be removed from the league of the season. When you're referring to matches, is that games? So 3 games, or is that series? So like 3 weeks.
That would be 3 weeks, 3 series.
3 separate series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they have if they forfeit 1 game in a series, does that still count? Does that count as like 1?
Like from showing up late or
like
forfeiting a game 2 of their own accord or something?
Yeah, like they have to forfeit 1 of the games. Is that counted towards this since they're not forfeiting a series?
If it adds up to a series, so say they do that twice, that would constitute 1 series.
So a single forfeit. So
that would basically it would count as half a series because they forfeited half of their series, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So six games essentially.
Yeah.
Which we made just update that to say 6 games rather than 3 matches. But yes.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
Bye.
Then we can add Greco again.
I wanted to ask. I don't know if I heard you correctly. You said that the captains can say no to a draft penalty.
They can.
Why? Like, so the reason that I question this is a team was given a draft penalty because potentially, let's say they're BMing the week before, or they did something that was against the rules and it's a punishment dictated by the league. Why are
I
allowed-
should
He should,
I should-
please clarify.
I should clarify before you go off on this. A team can decline a penalty, draft penalty for a
For
stand-in.
stand-ins, yeah, thank you.
Not an admin given penalty. If we dole out a penalty, it is there. No one is declining that penalty. If the penalty is there by default for a situation like a stand-in, then the captain can defer that.
Okay.
But if an admin gives a penalty, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
No,
yeah,
I should have brought it up when you said it the first time, Sub, because I heard the same thing that Greco heard when you said it, and I was like, that's not entirely true. And I was like, hold on.
Yes. If it is a draft penalty, you can decline it. If it is a penalty that we give, it is there. You cannot decline it.
Right, and then we have lastly Insane Chaos or Insane Panda.
Hello. I kind of wanted to go back to what I asked about having 5 players in the lobby. What if there's hypothetical situation, there are 5 players, they're all the right accounts, but you know for a fact that someone else has told you that there's a 5th player, they're not actually there at their computer, or there's someone else logged into their account for them, or their dad's just launched out and logged in, and that is made evident when the game begins. Either in draft, the game is paused, or when the game starts, it's paused and you run through multiple pauses. Is that completely fine according to the rules, or is that something that could impose a penalty?
So let me just make sure correctly. So basically, player A is not there, right? Players B through E or whatever are there.
Their account is in the lobby.
Sure, their account's in the lobby, but player A is not at their computer.
Yes.
The lobby still has to be started before 9:15. You still have your 5 pauses, or I believe it's 8 minutes of pause time. Whichever happens that you can use, and after that, I mean, you're out of pauses, right? It's the same scenario that would be like if a player disconnected. You don't have a player at the computer. You have no more pauses. The game goes on, basically. I don't know if that entirely answers your question, or if this is more like an account sharing question that you had, but
I know that answers it.
Okay. All right, then we can. If we have no more questions on forfeits, we can move on to score reporting. I don't believe anything was changed here, as well as contact for the most part, but I'll just go over them real quickly. Captains report scores on the website as they always have been. If you don't ticket your game, either because there was an issue with Steam or a user-based error, God forbid, then please just post the draft order of the heroes picked, as well as the end game screen to your respective captains chat, so that all the captains can have that information. That's something we've implemented. We just didn't have it in writing. Now it's in writing, so again, hopefully there's no more further issues on it. Contact team captains is still listed in the AD2L captain Discord list and frequently asked questions. Team rosters will also be listed on the website and in the public sheet in FAQ. And if communication with another captain is not possible, contact league admins via ticket and not DM. This is also just like a standard PSA. If you have any questions or if you're having any troubles, make a ticket. Like, again, we're here to help you. I promise we're closer to being your friends than your enemies, even if it's only by a little bit sometimes. But if you have a question, just, again, make a ticket, ask us. If it's league related, always make a ticket. If it's something that can be done on a more personal level, I'm always open for DMs. I will not speak for the rest of the admins, but And if we have anything on those two, we shouldn't, again, because I don't think anything was changed other than like I guess score reporting was changed. Sorry, but again, it's a lot of it's just cleaning up the language used in the rule set, and again having it in writing so that we can refer back to it for later stuff. Just reading Tyro. What if situation X happens? Because never once happened. Tickets exist to solve such situations. Correct. And then if we don't have any on those two ones, behavior and conduct in AD2L. I was really hoping. I think Subs got a kid problem, and I was really hoping he would be back by now. But there are some updates to the behavior and conduct in AD2L. I'm trying to go over it. I believe there's some updates. If I'm not mistaken, updates are near the end of behavior and conduct in AD2L. Where if there is a case where a player is breaking communication rules in game or in the AD2L Discord, take screenshots and submit to admins using a ticket. Actually, I think this. If admins identify unacceptable behavior in the AD2L community, even if that behavior is not specifically mentioned in these rules, admins may issue draft penalties, suspensions, forfeits, and remove players' teams from the league Discord depending on the severity of the violation. That's the ruling that was added. Actually, that's definitely what
that is the new part.
Oh, perfect, you're back. I was like going through them. I was like trying to find the update. I was like, it's just the last one.
Yeah, the last one, and then just some of the language was just clarified. But yeah, that is the main thing at the end there.
And then we'll take questions on
Jamo.
behavior.
So this has to do with behavior and pausing. There's really no rule that covers BM pausing. Are we allowed to BM pause?
I would say that would
no reason. You can use any reason to pause. Can't I just win a team fight and then say I won the fight and pause? And I won the fight is my reason to pause? And use that as justification for not being a BM pause because I gave a reason?
So two things. One, if you're BM pausing, that would fall under unsportsmanlike conduct. And if it's at all obvious that that's why you're doing it, you would get punished. Number two, if you're giving your reason that you want a team fight, because we can, again, watch a replay of pauses if the other team submits a replay, which if you're pausing a whole bunch for BM, they may, and we determine that it was unsportsmanlike, there will be penalties.
So I can pause and say mouse, though, and that's fine. Like
I would
after I win
assume
a team fight, I can pause and then say mouse.
I would assume that if your mouse was broken, that's exactly what you would do. So I don't know how we would know whether or not that was like your mouse or you BM pausing.
Just checking. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Cheddar.
I appreciate Jamokin. Be sure to watch all of his replays. There's just going to be like 15 mouse calls in the next series. I was wondering, again, this is something brought up from last season. There is a little bit of a slight favoritism and leniency towards certain people and personalities in this Discord that it's more of an attitude and just more so accepted that they're just kind of toxic and more misbehaving and are just antagonists, instigators, shit talkers, all of that stuff. And are, it's not with good intent. It's always with malice. And more often than not, it gets brushed off as that's just kind of who they are. And they just kind of get almost like left alone. And rather than being dealt with or kicked out of the Discord, they are here season after season. They're part of certain teams. And basically, they're kind of just problem children. And the only reason that they're still around and not banned out is basically there's a little bit of like favoritism and that's just how they are. That's just how they behave type of thing. They're not like viciously malicious, but they are still kind of problematic.
We are aiming to change that. That's all I can say about that.
Again, lots of great guesses in chat. You guys are great. We're playing Clue right now. Guess who it is? You know, could be certain. Could be one person. Could be many people.
There are definitely many people that can be that way on occasion, and we definitely take note of that. There are also people that are more pervasively that way, and we also take note of that. There was not a lot of enforcement and or expectations given in that regard for a long time, and so a lot of that is very deep set. I think that we are moving in the direction of not allowing that and being less and less okay with that, but it's not something that gets fixed in a day. But we don't want that. We don't want that kind of culture. We want this to be an encouraging and a welcoming place to be. So you will see more and more a shift away from that as time goes on, is my hope.
Gotcha. And same thing with like just general users and Discord users. Like there's people that obviously that make random Smurf AD2L accounts, or not AD2L, fucking Smurf like Discord accounts. Is there any way that we, you know, they just make random fucking accounts come in here? Obviously, there's somebody that should be in the league or are in the league. Is there any way we could like ban out like Smurf Discord accounts too?
That's a little bit trickier. We definitely.
I know it's a little bit trickier, but yeah, there's definitely people that are just like hiding behind like brand new accounts. And obviously, come in and join chats that they know what the fuck's going on and everything. It's like obvious they're on a second account, like hiding as they're talking shit and everything else too.
It will be talked about by the admin team. Because I personally think want to remain anonymous, a ticket. And if you don't trust the admins, I don't know what you're going into Dota 2 to like rant about. If you're going on a Smurf, like, you know, like if you're going on a Smurf, it means you don't trust your own opinions as well. So I don't know. To me, like that's, you either make a ticket if you're not confident, or you, you know, bring it to the public if you are. If you think the admins are incompetent in some ways, but that's just me.
Gotcha. Yeah. And last thing, anytime R&B brigades, feel free to give them a weekly 120-second draft penalty. That'd be my last thing.
Perfect. All right.
Down to game setting.
Yeah, game settings. That's where we are.
Nothing new though.
No, there's nothing new in game settings. Something that a lot of teams had been asking about doing and had been doing anyway. Was deferring the toss. Now it's officially in the rules that you can do that if you'd like. Teams had been doing it for a while anyway. It's just in there now, so you don't have to ask. If you want to do it, you can do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It is just an option. Greco, what you got?
Is this actually in the rules? Because I'm reading it right now and I don't see it. That was my question: is if we're going to be allowed to defer.
Side pick, automatic
coin toss. Yes.
I'm sure you did the exact same thing I just did, where you glanced over and you're like,
the
nothing's
coin
changed.
whenever they choose pick your side. Oh, or have because we don't like the word defer.
Correct.
Yeah, because defer can mean defer or defer, and we want it to mean defer and not defer.
I feel like defer is you're throwing out weird words.
For all of us that watch football, it only means one thing.
Yeah, there's different spellings. But okay, yeah, as long as it's in there, that was my question.
And Crimson, what you got?
How's it going? I was curious about the game setting related to server selection. The entire league takes place in North America, but there are a fair number of teams, including mine, that are US West specific. Would it be possible to change it so instead of being US East default, it's US East or West at the selection of the home team?
No.
It is US East by default if both teams are US West.
Sure.
You could play on US West, that's fine. But by default, it is US East unless both teams agree to change it. There have been times that people have played on US West when both teams are on the West Coast, but that would have to be something that both captains would have to work out.
Sure, but that breaks all you like if one team is West Coast and one team is East Coast, that is giving a default advantage to the East Coast team in every circumstance instead of letting it alternate. Like you're giving a systematic advantage to East Coast teams that way. It's not a big advantage, but like that is still creating a rule which systematically advantages teams in one time zone over another.
I believe US East is in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. No. It has been for a long time. So there
are several US East servers.
Yeah, I think the main
farthest
batch
west
is
one,
in
I believe,
Chicago.
is Detroit, actually.
Yeah. Was it Detroit now? It was Chicago for the longest time. Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to like re-examining that, but as a default, that's just something that we don't want people to have to be putting a lot of thought into figuring out where everybody is and then trying to tactically gain an advantage in that way. I don't know. Honestly, it's never come up other than a couple outlying teams that were West Coast that wanted to play US West when their games were against each other. We can definitely talk about it though. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want,
Naya just brought up a good point. I think this is why. I'm very against it too. He's
interesting.
Naya's like, I'm US West and have better connection at US East than I do US West. The servers in US West, I feel like, are very specifically located, and it is not always. I live smack dab in the center of the United States, right? I live in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Like, I have 60 ping on West and 40 ping on East at all times. I don't know if that's just because of where the servers are or what, but it seems
almost exactly what mine are, yeah.
But I ping 27 to US West and 135 to US East. So it wouldn't make a difference to you, but 100 milliseconds is a meaningful amount of time. Like, so the fact that I'm playing at systematic disadvantage, when you're saying like, yeah, for most people, it won't matter, but for teams in Boston and teams in LA, it will make huge differences, and you're giving a systematic advantage to East Coast teams. When you could just make the rule, it has to be one of these two servers, and the home team gets to choose, and the home team is always decided. It's the people who make the lobby. It's always decided every single week and is public information anyways. You could just create a fairer rule, and everyone would get half the weeks on their home server. And because of the population distribution of the US, it would end up mostly being US East anyways. But at least then I wouldn't be playing at a consistent systematic disadvantage every single week.
It could definitely be like we could definitely talk about it, I think. But it's definitely not.
We would have to we need to talk to Havoc about
maybe it will.
Yeah, we need to talk to Havoc about the assignment of home and away, because that is not something that follows any rhyme or reason.
So I mean, there is technically whoever hosts the lobbies, though. It's very simple, actually.
Yes, but the algorithm deciding home and away is it's randomized.
That's true. But you would have to have some format where it would split it half the time.
Where it would be fair.
Yeah, we'd have to split it half the time, basically.
All right, that makes sense, and it's also not that big of a deal. I just wanted to bring up that this was an issue. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Absolutely.
I mean, as an addition, I would definitely be interested to talk about this too, as far as seeding goes. Higher seed would choose between US East or West, but that's just
could
to me, this is not that big of an issue personally, I guess, for me myself. And I know, actually, now that I'm seeing two of the guys that are in here, I'm sure they're going to talk about all the European players and why it should never be US West.
I don't even know if I have to keep going. I think you said it for us. As AD2L has grown, we have so many Western European players that if the other team's like, oh, I know that they have European players, I'm just going to enforce the Western rule because I'm the home team, and then we automatically have to start searching for stand-ins, because while you can play the game across the country on 130 ping, you can't actually play competitively at 250 ping.
Right. That's probably what? Yep.
Yep.
Just dropped out. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. No. Our Rooster TM'd to me later, and he was like, he just said ha 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 ha, because we both do. As soon as I saw Finley our Rooster, I'm like, they got like 3 EU players, dude. I already know like what they're gonna say.
We're all just gonna be playing from Ireland here in like
duly noted.
So
duly noted.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to pausing. hopefully this is not divisive here. Basically, just the wording's been cleaned up. The old wording implied that if you did not like that the other team was pausing, you could just unpause and continue playing the game immediately and just basically tell them I'm playing, and it would be like a free forfeit. That's not what we wanted to imply. If the other team goes over their pause limit, please screenshot it if that is something that you are enforcing and you're wanting to enforce that on the other team. Please screenshot that and let us know. Continue playing the game. Don't leave the lobby. Don't abandon the game. Don't do anything crazy. That's not what we're trying to imply. Play the game out, and then we will rule on that afterwards. That's really the only change here. And make a ticket. No questions about pausing. Awesome. Casting and streaming. These rules were maybe not updated since Gambit first joined AD2L.
Oh, they had not, no.
We updated them, shortened them quite a bit, cleaned up the references to needing to be listed on the website to be able to cast a game, etc., etc. Realistically, now, your captains are still allowed to refuse casters in lobby they're not comfortable with. Having the casting role and being able to cast in lobby is a privilege. If you abuse that, you will not be able to cast in lobby. We might take away the casting role from you in the Discord. Anybody can cast a game, that's a ticketed game. Otherwise, we can't enforce that. If somebody wants to stream the game or cast a replay, that's not something we can enforce. But what you got, Licky?
It's just a very small, not rule change, sorry, word change. For the second point in casting and streaming, where it says any streams and matches must be 5 minutes behind the actual game, and then it says live game with a 5-minute stream delay. Is it possible to just have that like something like specifying that it's like in the lobby? Because there's a lot of confusion around like when people talk about like live game versus like in lobby versus Dota TV. Just to specify, like they can be in lobby with a 5-minute stream delay or out of lobby with no stream delay, if that makes sense. Just making that very clear.
Yes, we can update that verbiage.
So, yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, that's a good call. So that's all we got for casting and streaming. Lastly, we've just added in a very brief clause at the very end, which we'll just call the admin clause. Essentially, that in edge cases that are not directly covered by the rules, because we did our best to condense some of these rules and to clarify them without having the rules be, ridiculously long or impossible to understand or impossible for a captain to go over in 10 minutes. If there's something that occurs that's outside the rules, or there's an extraordinary circumstance, or something that doesn't directly fall under any rule, or even something that's just extreme, and we don't feel like the current rule properly addresses it, we will still address it. We're not going to say, well, that's not covered in the rules. In previous seasons, we've kind of run into wanting to be very transparent about, being accurate to the rules that are posted, even if there are situations where they're not ideal. Now we have the liberty to maybe adjust that a little bit if there is a really extreme circumstance where the rules maybe didn't anticipate or address what is happening. We will address it. So no major change there, just minor quality of life that should hopefully make things better for everybody in general.
Yeah, and before, no one's raising their hand too, but just for clarification, this is just an issue. We had a couple people basically that when they made tickets, they would, again, flirt with the rules and say, oh, well, there's not a rule for that, therefore I'm allowed to do it. And it's like, listen, man, it just because we don't have a specific rule for it yet doesn't mean like that what you're doing isn't like immature and inappropriate kind of thing. And so again, it's just for us to refer back to so that we have a rule in place that we can use again on kind of like fringe and edge cases.
Yeah. that is all we've got in terms of the rules as they stand, as they've been rewritten. Are there any general questions? Anything you wanted us to cover that we didn't? Anything that you feel like should be added? Now is your time. Now is your last chance. Finley.
Hey, this isn't like really like a rules change question. I don't know if like there was any other segments after this one. So I just wanted to inquire about the state of the website. So right now for AD2L, to gather all the information you might need, you have to go to 3 different locations. So I was just kind of curious if there's anything going on with the website.
I can speak to that because I've probably been the one doing the most with that. There are currently talks to improve things with the website, to rework some things. There have been talks at completely revamping the website. A lot of these things take time and or money. So there have been a lot of ideas over the past couple seasons and a lot of progress made towards exactly what we want to do moving forwards, but it's kind of like a slow moving ship. It's not something that you can just slap together and call it a day, because the existing website has a lot of functionality from previous seasons built into it that would not be super easy to transfer immediately. So yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, we're not using challenge for our playoff brackets and everything is working properly and everything pulls and we're able to make all the quality of life changes we need to make right now. With the current iteration of the website, not everything is ideal, but we are aware of that and there are changes in the works. It's just a matter of when, not if, I guess I should say. So I don't have a hard date for you, but we're aware that things need to be working better, and we're moving that direction. So
Yeah, I write software. I don't know if you guys would like some additional help or anything along those lines, but I would definitely be willing to dedicate some time to working on
do you
features.
write in Ruby? Do you know Ruby?
I can learn Ruby.
Okay.
Yeah, so here's the thing. That has been the primary issue that we have run into with the website. Is one, like Seth needs to basically know you and be able to trust you enough to give you access to the website. And I've talked to Lorenzo, and actually Lorenzo had a good idea of just make a copy, and he would host it of like the current iteration of it, just for like playground purposes, basically. But you need to know Ruby, and you need to know Seth. Again, the big problem is no one knows Ruby.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like one of
we've
my
had a
things
couple
where,
people offer to.
Yeah.
I'm not joking when I think we've had 2 to 3 people offer to completely rewrite it in another language that they know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I would suggest. Like if your whole thing's written in Ruby, like you're probably wasting your time fixing or adding stuff in Ruby. Moving to like one of the free modern languages, so you could access like modern JavaScript frameworks.
Right.
And your website doesn't have a lot going on. I feel like you could do that like over the course of like a season with like a team of 2 or 3 people.
If that is something that you're sincerely willing to maybe look into helping with, go ahead and make a ticket and we'll stick it in the overflow, because that is something that we're going to be talking about this off season. So
Yeah,
genuinely.
sure thing. That's like, I don't know, there's like the most frustrating thing in the world is like, okay, who do we play this week? And having to like go into announcements and find the announcement from Gambit.
Yes.
With the links to the site because I didn't bookmark them. I don't know, just consolidating information would be fantastic.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. I'll put on that ticket. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Thing I wanted to touch on is editing and redacting some posts and stuff in the Discord. I'd appreciate it if you guys would just strike through the old comments that are redacted so we can see the edits. Sometimes posts are edited and sometimes edited kind of heavily. That changed them quite a bit, and I would like to see the edit history essentially.
On announcements or
basically almost any admin comment. Not just like you're shitting around in like the Dota 2 chat, but announcements or admin decisions or things of that nature that are important.
Okay. I think the only one that has been edited recently that I remember editing a substantial amount was the Breaking Ben one, because we edited the next day once we had more information rather than make a whole separate post. I just edited the original post. I think in general the only edits that happen are just like grammatical. Because
I'm just saying,
my
I would appreciate if you just strike through the old parts and add the new one. Is all. Not make a whole new post, but just so I can see the edit history.
Gotcha.
Just for transparency, makes me feel better.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely.
On the website stuff, I've brought this up before, but I guess I'll just add it to the record. One very welcome change would be making it so that the player profiles are Googleable. I don't know the technical term for that, but if I just Google AD2L Gambit Axiom, the first result is like his player page. So then I don't have to know like what team he's on or whatever if I'm looking up somebody. It's actually impossible to find people's Dota bus.
Yeah, especially when names change because of the way the website currently pulls names from Steam. It's not always super easy to figure out who is who on certain teams, and that's more based on the way the website pulls, not based on anything that anybody's doing wrong. But yeah, no, I hear you. There's a lot of website based stuff that could be revitalized.
Currently, the website, also for those of you who have struggled with adding a player, you might already know this, but the website only updates your name if you log into the Dota.play on website. So, for instance, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he's listed as Fructose Father on the website as he is in game now, but I'm pretty sure my pause4 is listed as Jeb Bush Hype Wagon, and has been since about 2016.
Yeah, it should just be your esport.
Yeah, right. I agree. That's again there's a lot of issues with the website in general that again are a cause of Ruby being the primary coding.
I've had reasons to success creating a website using Squarespace.
Yeah, do you have a 20% off code or anything we could use to
yeah, if you use the code Licky the Cow in chat, you'll get a 25% discount.
I was using Big Dick Lick this whole time. A fool
Yeah,
I've been.
Oh no.
Licky, yeah.
Only beginning 2%.
All right, that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think
that's it.
That's everything for the night, right? Only took us a meager 2 hours. I don't know who this is, but I'm already upset. It's okay. It's Licky.
Oh, it's Licky. I was gonna say, to be fair, Gambit, this is probably a 20 seasons worth of rules that got reworked.
Absolutely.
So
I'm so sorry to extend this, but this is actually a serious thing, so that's why I went to do it. This is a question more of like just to getting community feedback real quick. But if you have ideas for basically God, what was my wording?
Discord.
Jesus.
Right?
Yes, in general, also if you have like suggestions for the Discord, please of course ping me, DM me, whatever, let me know. But then also specifically, because this is a potential upcoming change, if you have ideas for tags/categories for suggestions that people make in feedback. For example, like if someone makes a suggestion about like a Discord change, the category would be Discord. Or if they have a suggestion about like rank adjustments, it could fall under either like rules or medals/weights. So just if any like suggestions about tags/categories for the suggestions that people post in feedback would be much appreciated. New assets for content. So those are actually already there. If you look at Resource Center for casters and content creators, it's a forum, and then you go to Season 37 graphics, and there are a bunch of things posted by Sub and available for everyone to use.
I
Oh,
think
you mean for
can only
38?
see those.
I have no idea. XD.
I think you can only see those if you're a caster or content creator, I believe.
Oh,
We can certainly update that though.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all.
All right. We got anything? You got anything, Gambit?
No.
How'd the series go, Dops? Welcome.
I'd like to apologize to everyone for being late as shit. I did not expect the games to go that far. I hope I didn't miss any questions that would have been directed towards me, but thank you all for showing up and doing a better job than I did.
Perfect. Nothing of value is lost by not having Dops. Beautiful.
It's true.
And everything of value is won for Dops. She won her series.
Dude, I am a fucking potato at this point.
All right, let's go ahead and I think if we have no further questions, go ahead and call it a night. Like wrap it up, right?
Yeah, that is it. Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks for reading the rules. We will announce the start date for season 38 soon.